5 times Son had caught himself before calling them mom and dad, and 1 time he didn't hold back. Chapter 1. He never slept in a bed before. Well, there had been that bed at the motel on the way to San Francisco, but that didn't really count. And he hadn't so much slept as he'd passed out from sheer exhaustion due to being on the run from a megalomaniac. So again, it didn't count. This whole thing was new. Waking up in a bed that was his, in a room that was his, in a house with other people who had given him this room, this bed, shaped like a race car. If he thought about it too long, too hard, his chest got tight, like it was doing now. There was a tapping from the floor where the pull-down stairs were, but he didn't answer. Instead, he pulled the comforter up over his head, rolling away from the sound.
Sonic?
Tom's voice, muffled through the wood and insulation and drywall, didn't sound concerned, merely curious.
You gonna wake up sometime today? It's almost noon.
The tightness in the hedgehog's chest didn't go away. In the darkness under the covers, he shut his burning eyes.
Just go away. Please, just go.
Another voice, softer, sweeter, floated up.
Nothing?
Nothing.
It's been 2 days. He should at least eat. I'm gonna go make him something.
Despite how hard he kept his eyes shut, it didn't stop the tears from forcing their way down his cheeks. They were worried about him. After everything he put him through? A gasping sob slipped out and he bit his tongue hard. He couldn't risk them hearing.
He'll come down when he's ready.
He could practically hear Tom play his arm around Maddie.
Come on.
The creaky floorboard signaled their departure, but relief didn't come, just more tears. It didn't make sense. He'd been so happy 2 days ago. They tucked him in, and he drifted off, giggling, at long last, excited to see what the next day would bring. He hadn't gotten out of bed since. His normally lighter-than-air frame felt like lead, and sure, he'd used a ton of power and energy over the last few days, but he'd never had trouble bouncing back before. Why couldn't he muster the strength to get up, go downstairs, see the people who'd given him his first real home in 10 years? Now they probably thought he was a jerk, taking the hospitality for granted. They were probably right. He crawled in tighter on himself, the pillow wet and the air around him humid and hot. The tears only stopped when he drifted off, fitfully, sometime later. When he opened his eyes again, the light pouring in from the skylight was a dark pink. He'd flailed the comforter off in his sleep, and now he was cold and sticky. Sweat made the fur cling to his body, made the sheets stick to his fur, and it was so uncomfortable. He pushed himself up into a sitting position. Everything was sore, and his head felt fuzzy. As he blinked around the room, through bleary eyes, he spotted it, a plate, sitting right next to the drop downstairs, with a sandwich and chips and a bottle of water. A sound came out of his mouth that was a strange mixture of a laugh and a sob. He swung his legs off the bed, a couple of wobbly steps, and he was sitting cross-legged on the floor. He had to force the first bite, but he inhaled the rest, then licked the crumbs from the plate and downed the water in one long continuous gulp. As he put the bottle down, his stomach, now slightly distended, gave a churning, gurgling sound and he groaned. Nature was calling. The stairs lowered without much effort, but more than enough noise to wake the dead. He cringed. So much for taking care of business undetected. He could hear footsteps and seriously considered pulling the ladder back up and climbing out the skylight. But then Maddie came into view. Her mouth was smiling, but her eyes didn't sell it.
Hey, you!
Hey,
He slowly made his way down the stairs, eyes anywhere but on her.
thanks. For lunch, I didn't mean to. I did, I guess. But if you were in the middle of something, you can just go back to. But before you do that, maybe you can point me in the direction of the men's room.
He twisted his gloved hands together, gaze on his socks. If she shared his embarrassment, she didn't show it.
Around the corner, second door on the right.
Got it. Thanks. Again.
He tried to run, but his legs still felt too shaky. Wouldn't do what he told them. Walking was the order of the day, apparently. She didn't follow him. From behind the closed bathroom door, he could hear her turn on the radio in the kitchen. News, from the sound of it. And he felt a little bit of the queasy tension leave his stomach. The room was big, bigger than any truck-stop bathroom he ever used. Sometimes digging a hole in the woods just felt a little too animal, and he'd given doing things the human way a try. And cleaner too. As he was pulling off his gloves to wash his hands, his eyes kept darting over to the tub. He'd never taken a bath before. He tried the shower at the motel, and that was fine, like a brainstorm that just happened to be scalding. But kind of boring. In the woods, being clean hadn't really been a priority. When it rained, he'd run around in it. And that was that. He hadn't been a fan of the ocean, but the tub looked inviting. Cautiously, curiously, he drew closer. It seemed straightforward enough. One handle had a little H on it, and the other C. He twisted the H handle. Instantly, a spray of unexpected cold water dropped down on him from over his head. Yelping, he jerked back and looked up. Instead of it coming from the faucet, the water was coming from the showerhead up above.
Oh, come on.
Everything okay in there?
Maddie's voice at the door had him squeaking again, face hot as he scrambled to shut off the water.
Oh, yes, totally fine. Nothing to see.
The door opened.
Here? Oh, hey again.
He managed a weak smile as he turned to face her, water dripping from his flattened ears. The woman he'd only thought of as pretzel lady for years didn't look upset at the mess. Her eyes narrowed as she took in the scene, but the corner of her mouth twitched upwards as she said,
The hot and cold water are reversed.
Huh?
For the shower. That's what happens when you've got a husband who thinks watching a YouTube video makes him practically an expert. You get a house full of quirks.
All right.
She turned and opened the door, reaching in and pulling out a fluffy white towel that looked new.
You get the hang of it though.
She set the towel down on top of the closed toilet seat.
Want me to show you?
Oh, no, I mean, not like no, but I can just
He put a hand onto the towel.
clean up the mess, get out of your hair. No big deal.
His gaze fell on the tub again, and he bit his bottom lip. Maddie considered him for a moment. He seemed so much smaller now. Socked feet shuffling on the tile, ears flat against his head. Was this really the same creature who'd knocked out the power to most of the Northwest? Deep down in her chest, something ached. Tom had gone to work, late shift at the station today, so it was just her and their new house guest. No, that wasn't right. An orphan alien who had lived in a cave on the outskirts of town, who could travel faster than the speed of sound, who roped her husband and her into a death-defying chase across 3 states. Well, house guest didn't exactly do it justice. He called them his best friends. That didn't feel right either. She could remember coming onto Main Street, seeing him crawling away from that monster. The way her heart had bunched itself up to her throat. She had been so afraid for him, had felt so hopeless. She felt hopeless in this moment as well, but in a different way. It had been her idea to invite him to stay with them. But maybe it had been too much change, too soon. He looked so uncomfortable, so unlike the bubbly, energetic hedgehog she thought she knew. But that was being presumptuous for sure. They had only met less than a week ago. A connection was there, but it was still tenuous, fragile.
The only thing you're keeping me from is a sink full of dishes.
A few steps closer and she reached past him to plug the drain, switch the faucet from shower to bath mode, and twist the nozzle marked C.
Come on, let's get you cleaned up.
Sonic blinked, watching as she sat herself on the wall of the tub.
Huh?
Put your hand under there.
She pointed at the stream of water.
Is that too hot?
Wearily, he did as she instructed, then pulled his bare hand back with the winds.
Maybe a little.
She gave the each nozzle a twist, put her own hand under the faucet.
Okay, how about now?
He tried again, let the warm water run up his forearm, and then nodded.
Alright, that's gonna take a few minutes to fill up.
She leaned back on the heel of her palm, lips pursed.
We don't really have any choice or anything. Oh, hang on.
His brows furrowed, eyes following her.
I'm not a little. What are you looking for?
Something I've been saving since my bridal shower.
She was back at the little closet, looking for all intents and purposes like she might be trying to find Narnia for how far she was leaning in.
I hope I didn't throw them away last time I was cleaning up the... Aha! Here we go.
She re-emerged with what looked like a plastic-wrapped ball of chalk in one hand. He nearly pricked one ear up at her. She grinned. Coming back to the tub, she unwrapped the ball and offered it to him.
Drop it in.
The thing in his hand was blue with pink and green swirls marbled through it. It smelled, he brought it up to his nose, like the wildflowers that grew along the riverbank in the summer. He snorted, surprised. The humans kept managing to do that, surprise him. With a shrug, he held it out over the half-full tub and let it fall into the water. Whatever he'd been expecting it to do, it wasn't this. The immediate fizzing and bubbling, and just how quickly it filled the tub with a rainbow of suds, had him letting out a tiny delighted gasp. He leaned over to watch more closely. The wild flower smell was growing stronger, rising up around him with the steam.
What the heck is that thing?
It's called a bath bomb.
Maddie retook her seat on the edge of the tub.
Well, it checks out.
She lassoed and shut off the water.
It's been collecting dust in the closet for years. I don't usually make time for baths.
He nodded slowly.
Yeah? Me neither.
Well, no time like the present.
He stood, hands on the lid of the tub, eyes on the water for a long moment.
So you just what? Hop in?
Pretty much. Might want to take your socks off first.
Right? Duh.
He was already kicking them away.
Okay, here goes nothing.
In one smooth motion, he hoisted himself up and over the edge, landing with a small splash in the basin. Standing, the water already reached his waist and he sank down instinctively. It rose up over his shoulders, enveloping him like a frothy, colorful, sweet-smelling cocoon. The low-throaty laugh that passed his lips wasn't planned, and he upped his muzzle warm even as he worked his more confident smirk back into place as Cuppa.
Yes, I guess this is better than the Pacific.
I should hope so.
Maddie grinned. She dipped her hands into the water, came up with a pile of soft blue bubbles, and let them fall on top of his head. Careful to work with the grain so as not to get pricked, she began working her fingers through his quills. He made a confused noise and she pulled back.
Oh, do you mind? Sorry, should have asked first.
No, I guess not.
He shrugged, shoulders appearing and then disappearing beneath the suds just as quickly.
You're the one who knows what you're doing.
A little bit anyway.
She resumed her work, thinking about how it was sort of like giving Ozzy a bath and simultaneously how vastly different it was. Only somewhat surprising similarity was discovered unintentionally when she went to scrub behind his ears, and he gave a whole body shudder. It was immediately followed by a high-pitched nervous laugh, and then the hedgehog dunked himself fully underwater, resurfacing at the other side of the tub, slicking his quills back and not making eye contact.
Who made that embarrassing noise? Not this guy, that's for sure. Must have been some totally uncool kid passing by the window just now, like maybe a baby or something.
He rambled, sinking lower until his words were merely bubbles rising in front of his nose.
Sonic?
Maddie said gently. She got only bubbles in response.
Do you like getting your ears rubbed?
He raised his head up just enough to mumble.
Apparently.
Sympathy tinged her smile. Of course this discovery was new to him. When would he have had the opportunity to learn it before this moment?
If it makes you uncomfortable, I promise I won't do it anymore. I would like to get some of the dirt out of your quills though, if that's alright. He fully submerged again, reappearing back at her side.
Yes, okay.
He drew his knees up, wrapping both arms around them.
You want I'll tell, will you?
Not if you don't want me to.
She scooped up 2 more handfuls of bubbles and sent back to work.
Though, I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. It's okay to like being touched.
Sonic was quiet, watching the colors in the water move lazily around him. Her fingers in his quills were soothing, carding away the grime. She paused to pick out a larger piece of debris, and he froze. He felt this before. years ago, a lifetime ago. But it had been a beak, not fingers, plucking leaves and grass from his fur, preening. His chest felt tight all over again. Maddie felt him go rigid, waited for him to tell her to stop. But instead, the sound of quiet sniffling reached her ears, and her heart broke clean in half.
Hey, it's okay.
Her voice was soft, as were her hands, still rhythmically moving.
Do you want me to go?
He shook his head, not trusting himself to speak, glad she was behind him.
Alright, I'm gonna keep working then. You just breathe, okay? With me, okay? In through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth.
He recognized the phrase from her Saturday morning yoga videos. He always been so busy trying to bend himself in ways a hedgehog clearly wasn't meant to. He'd never bothered to try the breathing thing. He did now, listening to her inhale and exhale, focusing on matching her pace. The first few exhales were shaky, mortifyingly tainted with whimpers and gasps. But after 10 or 15 repetitions, it started to work. He could feel the tightness in his chest lessen, the muscles in his back relax.
Huh.
He muttered.
I guess that was not just made up after all.
Maddie smiled with relief. She'd been acting on instinct, going with her gut. Her gut had been the right way to go, apparently.
I'll never lie to you, kiddo. Promise.
He chuckled.
I'll hold you to that.
The water started to cool down soon after, and so Maddie showed him which switch to flip to drain the tub, and then how to switch it back to shower mode, which she used to rinse off the suds that were still clinging to his fur. He stepped out of the tub and started to shake dry, but she quickly threw a towel over him.
What do you say we go get dinner ready?
You read my mind?
Not so fast, mister.
Grumble at the mere mention of more food.
Plus, gonna go grab clean socks.
And her, but then she was rubbing him dry, and through the thick towel, her fingers one ear quick rub before dropping her hand back to her side and turning to leave. Face warm, chest swelling was something he could. She was on her knees close to eye level, smiling at him as she worked the towel. He twisted back around.
Won't happen.
For everything.
He gave her a mock stern look so she knew he meant business. And then his expression softened. She was as methodical in drying him as she had been cleaning him. And just as gentle. No wonder Tom and Ozzy both lit up whenever she got home. With the towel clutched around his shoulders, he tried to put on his familiar confident smirk. But his mouth only made it as far as a shy smile as he mumbled.
But maybe you could rub my ears again sometime.
She tried to stop herself from cooing. He really was too cute for his own good. And she squeezed his shoulders.
Anytime, kiddo.
She choked his chin with a loose fist and then stood.
What do you say we go get dinner ready?
You read my mind?
He nodded, feeling his stomach rumble at the mere mention of more food.
I'm just gonna go grab clean socks and I'll be right there.
Sounds like a plan.
She ruffled the fur on the top of his head, gave one ear quick rub before dropping her hand back to her side and turning to leave. Face warm, chest swelling was something he couldn't quite name. His mouth moved of its own accord.
Maddie?
Yeah?
She twisted back around.
Thanks for everything. Really?
Her smile was twice as warm as the bath.
Like I said, anytime, kiddo. See you in a minute, and no time cruising in the hallway.
What? Seriously, Buzz? Hill, for reals?
Rules are rules.
She smirked as she strode off towards the kitchen.
Lame?
He called after her, smiling widely.